So, heute haben wir hier besondere Sachen liegen. Für viele sehen sie irgendwie ja, so aus, als würde man sie kennen, aber dann irgendwas ist dann trotzdem komisch. Worum soll es halt gehen?
Um verbotene Zigarren, zumindest in Europa, zumindest ist der Verkauf hier verboten. Und Sonny wird uns gleich erklären, was es damit auf sich hat. Er hat die aus den USA mitgebracht. Das sind im Prinzip die bekannten kubanischen Marken, die hier natürlich aufgrund von Copyrights nicht möglich sind zu verkaufen. So Sonny, what about those cigars?
So funny enough, you said it was illegal in Europe. It's actually illegal to sell these everywhere outside the US. So these are some of the Cuban legacy brands that we have in the US. I'll explain a little bit about the history. So I think everybody knows about the Cuban Revolution, and of course during the Cuban Revolution, the operations of Menendez and Garcia, this really Cuban historical company that owns the copyrights to Hauptmann and also Monte Cristo. They moved after the revolution. They moved their operations to the Canaries before settling down to Dominican Republic. And eventually, then this company sold their company to Alcaldes, which is based in Madrid, I think. So what happens is, of course, back in Cuba, the government nationalized the brand, and they still insist that, hey, this is the brand that we have. So as you can see now in this world, there are two companies with a lot of money trying to fight for these brands. And so far they've been fighting it out in court, but it's fallen really along political lines where the the Cuban legacy brand, that's what I would call the one that's in the US, the Cuban legacy brands are sold only in the US. And as you can see, these are kind of familiar markings, right? Familiar brands, just with different colors and different and different blends. Of course, none of these contain Cuban tobacco. So, for example, this Hauptmann by A.J. Fernandez. I think everybody who's had an A.J. Fernandez cigar here in Germany or wherever, you know that he's a great blender out of Nicaragua. So he uses a lot of his own tobacco from his own farms. Yeah. And Alcaldes then approached him to have a collaboration so that he could blend the Hauptmann cigars. And these are, of course, the other different brands from Alcaldes. This is Monte Cristo, the white series. Actually, it's made with Connecticut shade wrappers. It's actually, I really like that one. And of course, over here,
the Romeo and Julieta. It's only called Romeo instead of Romeo and Julieta?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's the brand for that extension. And then you have San Luis Rey, which I think is now produced in Honduras as well. So it's a very funny thing, right? I actually gave you one of the Hauptmanns to smoke, and of course it tastes very different. And of course here you have the original Cuban brand. This is the Hauptmann number 2, which is a fantastic cigar in its own right. But it's so that's the interesting thing about it is this cannot be sold in the US legally, and this cannot be sold anywhere else legally. So for example, I think I'm not sure which brand, but they have a Cohiba brand in the US as well. But they try to bring that blend into Europe, and they have to change the name totally. The packaging kind of still.
Here it's called Silencio.
Silencio.
Yeah. But this one comes, for example, from Scandinavian Tobacco Group.
Yeah, General Cigars. So these are Alcaldes, but they have I think it was a strategy to buy all these brands to make sure that the copyright and the trademark the name of the cigar help enhances.
You talked about the legal thing with the courts. They are fighting against each other. So who exactly is fighting against?
It's Habanos Group, Cuba Tobacco versus Alcaldes or whoever owns the rights. And again, it's kind of, I think, fallen into a stalemate where everybody knows they're not going to advance one way or another. There's no, I don't see in the next 5 years that these cigars with these brands will make it in Europe, and also vice versa.
Yeah.
Hauptmann in the US that can be sold legally on a cigar shop.
Concerning the the sales, I would say, are those brands popular in the US, or do people think in the US they buy Cuban cigars? Or
I think that's I'm not going to say explicitly that the store owners say that, hey, these are Cuban cigars, but it's also something you kind of leave out of conversation.
Okay.
And I would say as well that from the ones that I've smoked, it really ranges in $5 to $15 range. So I haven't, outside of the Cohiba brand that they just launched, and some of the Monte Cristos, I don't think they actually put these out as premium brands, like super premium that can stand toe to toe with a Padron or a Davidoff, for example. Okay. So I think it's for a certain group of
so it's in the middle price range, available for everybody, but those ones are not as popular as, for example, brands such as, let's say, Davidoff, Padron, Arturo Fuente.
I think it depends how you define popular, right? Because
we're talking about sales, about quantities.
If it's about quantities, I'm pretty sure these sell more just in quantities. But of course, these are priced at a lower price point. So when you say popular, I would say if someone were to give 2 cigars in front of me and I could choose each one, I would pick a Davidoff, for example. But if it's your own budget, then you have to work. So popular in taste doesn't mean popular in sales.
You say, for example, this Upman, this copied, I would say Upman is in the US is like $15, but you got it for $5. So how can it be?
They run a lot of sales in the US as well. So when you buy a box, you buy a discount, you get a discount, and there was a period of time when I was buying a lot of boxes as well. So I kind of got that. I think this is one of the differences in how cigars are sold in the US as well, and in Germany. In Germany, I think you have a fixed price,
exactly.
And you're not allowed to go below that price. Maybe you sell a box, it's 3% discount. But in the US, you're free to price them as you like for promotion.
So it can even go down to $5.
Yeah, exactly. So I wait for the right time for the promotion. It's a different buying strategy. But the Hauptmann AJ Fernandez, it's a really nice smoke. It really expresses the Nicaraguan flavor. There's a lot of spicy, a lot of very peppery. It's a strong cigar as well. Obviously, very different in taste profile from the Hauptmann. Made in Cuba.
Also interessant zu sehen auch, dass man sich überhaupt nicht Gedanken gemacht hat, irgendwie einen Geschmack zu kopieren, sondern es ging ja darum, die Namen zu kopieren und dann einfach mit demselben Namen Zigarren auf den US-amerikanischen Markt zu bringen. Thank you so much, Sonny, for this introduction.
Sure. And I think something to add, I notice you say copiering a lot. According to them, they own the legal. They own the copyright. So for them, it's not copying, it's brand extensions and working on the brand as a whole. Because I don't think any of them are trying to replicate what you get out of it.